Welcome to our September Masterclass. This month we're going to focus on the works of Beethoven. We are celebrating 250 years since Beethoven was born in 1770. So there hopefully had been a lot of concerts to honor that, but now as teachers we are making it a point to make sure all our students recognize his contributions to the music community, to the literature, and to seek out not only to learn to play his music, but to listen to as much Beethoven music this year as possible. 1770 was a pivotal year because he was born at a time of unrest. During his early years in 1789, there was the storming of the Bastille, not only the French Revolution, but the American Revolution that happened earlier. Those events shaped his life and shaped his approach to how he composed. He came from a very classical orientation. His first teacher was Franz Joseph Haydn. Count Waldstein was his patron and arranged for him to study with Haydn. The famous quote is this: as he sent him off to study, he said, "You shall receive Mozart's spirit from Haydn's hand." Haydn was very steeped in the classical tradition, and so we hear that classical sound come through in his early music. I'm going to play some examples for you today to show the transformation of Beethoven as a composer. This first piece was dedicated to his first teacher, Haydn, and it was written in 1795. Beethoven is 25 years old. Opus 2, number 1, Sonata in the key of F minor. Now, if you didn't know who had written this, you could have said this was written by Mozart or Haydn or Beethoven. It's very classical in structure, going from the traditional minor 1 to a minor 5. So here's just a short example. So that's theme number 1, and now that theme repeats in another voice, in the bass voice, but now the theme is in the minor 5. Second theme, now we have the sequence, now we have a sequence with repeating themes. So this is very, very classical, or just these solid chords. Very classical structure, very traditional, the 1 going to the 5. Only 3 years later, we now have an example of Beethoven's development and growth as a composer. The Pathetique Sonata, Opus 13, in the key of C minor, again was written just 3 years later, 1798. Beethoven is 28 years old, and now he emerges with his own style that celebrates the individual. As these revolutions that were happening around the world started impacting society, and the big institutions of the church and the state begin to crumble or begin to take on less significance, the importance of the individual and his experience in life and his connection to his fellow men begins to rise. And you can hear this passion in this music. Listen to the wide range of dynamics, the long phrase lines, and the long points of arrival, and the intense emotion that Beethoven brings out in this particular piece. This is Pathetique, Opus 13. the first piece. Extraordinary shift. Now, this is the time when Beethoven realizes that he's starting to go deaf. And there's just such a passion and such an intensity in the music that you can hear that conflict. Why would God give Beethoven that incredible talent and at the same time deprive him of the one instrument he needed most, his hearing? So he's very prolific. Over the next 7 or 8 years, Beethoven is composing at a very fast rate. He's trying to get all of this passion and all of his musical ideas down on print and get those works published. He continues to compose for the next 19 years. He goes deaf when he's around 34, 35 years old. And the next 19 years of his life, he's composing in complete silence. And still some of the most beautiful music ever written. The next piece is, again, a wonderful example of how personal and intimate his music is. This is the second movement to the Pathetique, the second movement to the same piece I just played. This is the Adagio Cantabile to the Pathetique Sonata by Beethoven. Just a portion of an extraordinary piece, and you may be familiar with that. It's a very famous one, and it's been recorded, and it's one of the favorite pieces ever written by Beethoven. It's traveled all over the world. Beethoven wrote works that are accessible to late elementary right through intermediate, advanced, and virtuosic levels. This particular collection by Beethoven was written especially for students who are late intermediate to early advanced, some of his easiest sonata movements. And I'm always looking for great Beethoven pieces to recommend to my students. I always have Beethoven on hand to demonstrate and to encourage students to learn to play. And just to give you an idea of how prolific his writing is, he wrote over 840 pages of sonatas in these 2 volumes. So again, the level from late intermediate to virtuosic is represented in these 32 sonatas by Beethoven. Probably the premier, the most important piano music ever written, and stands to this day as beloved and as a standard for all other compositions. So I hope you have the opportunity not only to listen to Beethoven music on YouTube, but to learn to play Beethoven and to learn the voicing, the line, the phrasing, and the strong romantic elements that are so apparent in his music. I encourage you to look at the PowerPoint first. I hope you've had a chance to look at that, and I hope you have a chance to review some of Beethoven's music over the next few weeks. And we'll discuss this further at our next lesson. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.